Welcome to the Hourly Podcast. Today, we delve deep into the world of franchising and empowering the hourly workforce with Alex Yeater, a former Verizon store owner turned Everbowl franchisee. Alex shares his insights on finding emerging brands with growth potential and creating supportive workplaces. Throughout the discussion, Alex reveals his strategies for attracting younger talent and the importance of community and mastermind groups in personal and professional growth. Enjoy. Alex, great to get connected. Where are you calling in from today?
Noblesville, Indiana, north of Indianapolis.
Very nice. Did you grow up there?
No, Ohio boy. Came out to Indiana about 11 or 12 years ago to help my partner Mitch with Verizon stores. And so we were doing Verizon stores for quite a while.
And are you still doing that? Because I know probably today we're going to be talking a lot about Everbowl and the emerging franchise category. How long were you doing Verizon for, and what was that like?
So Verizon was 20 years. We are out. We sold the last of our stores 2 years ago. We got up to 32 stores, mainly in the Midwest. Speaking of hourly employees, I think we had the count of up to like 800 people, not at all at the same time, but over the course of our years. But I did wireless for 20 years. I started at Alltel as a sales rep and just worked for a few different Verizon agents, and then my partner Mitch and I decided to go off on our own and open up some stores.
Cool. So how did you end up in Everbowl after having that? And I'm sure for someone with your experience, having that many stores and retail locations and experience therein, you had a lot of options. Like, why your particular brand? And did you look at any other as you were making that decision?
Yeah, so we were very, it was almost like, I think a lot of times our business decisions are based off of whatever we're currently in. Like the next decision's based off what are we currently in or what are the past. And the comfort and security of Verizon also came with the lack of growth opportunities because they've been around forever and every street corner is already taken. So an emerging brand was extremely important to us. The way that I describe it is we were looking, and you don't always get these right? But we were looking for a rocket ship that we felt like was about to take off, where there was tons of territory, where if we got in and it went well, we could gobble up as much as we wanted to gobble up. And our first look was at Crumble Cookie, and it was when Crumble Cookie, it was in the midst of Crumble Cookie taking off, and our area, Hamilton County, Indiana, was already sold. So I literally have never had a Crumble Cookie to this day because of that. But definitely thankful that the way that things shook out. After that, so our journey of looking at franchises was like an 8-month process. And we looked at home services franchise. Honestly, restaurants were not even on our radar until we looked at Crumble and we realized like, oh, if you keep it really simple, you keep the model really simple, you keep the menu really simple, it could be repeatable and growable. So I went on a mission trip to Los Angeles, had my first acai bowl there. It wasn't Everbowl, but I had my first acai bowl and I was like, man, I feel like this could crush it around where we live. And, so started doing research on a few different brands and came across Jeff Fenster, the founder of Everbowl, on a podcast. So it shows the power and the reach of podcasts. Right. And and that kind of started our journey. And it went from, we wanted to open 5 stores to we became area reps, which is commonly known as like a master franchise. So we have a deal for 13 states and 150 stores. And we've got 26 of them open. We'll probably open another 14 this year. We own 3 or 4 of those stores, and the rest of them are franchisees that we've helped bring into the system.
Yeah, congratulations on all that growth. And, this podcast particularly, and what our listeners are constantly looking for is people practices, right?
Yeah.
And going from Verizon hourly workers to Everbowl hourly workers, what are some of the first things you notice about the differences of like the recruitment process or maybe the quality of people that came in? Like, talk to me a little bit about that, because I'm sure it was new for you in the restaurant space.
Yeah, it was drastically different. Verizon started pretty simple, right? I mean, it was we were I mean, complete like I sold phones before there was camera phones. I sold phones before there were smartphones, right? So it was a lot of the challenging part was the rate plans, right? Like because you had 92 different rate plans that you were choosing from. So so it was complicated, but it wasn't all that complicated. And then when you started getting into smartphones and Apples and the Blackberries and the Androids, and now we're financing $1,000 devices, it started to become more challenging. And it was there was almost a shift of it being a pleasant experience for customers. Like people were used to come in happy-go-lucky, they're getting their first phone to now they're coming in and they're having to fork out a lot of money to get a phone and they're just not as excited about it. So so we had a lot of across the Midwest, we had a lot of single moms that worked for us. Not, I'd say our demographic was like 25 to 35 with Verizon and the Verizon stores.
Yeah.
Which we really enjoyed. We really treated our organization as like a leadership development company, and we really poured a lot of time and effort into developing our people. All the way down to bringing in people to speak about Dave Ramsey stuff, on how to build a budget, how to get out of debt, all that kind of stuff. And then now we have 16 to 22-year-olds, and this is their first job. The majority of them, the job's not a necessity. So they're here for a lot of it's for the social aspect of it, right? Like which is honestly a luxury for us with Everbowl because we literally have wait lists of kids that want to come work for us because we're the coolest job in town, right now. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're the new place in town and there's nothing like it. And then we just need to keep it that way, right? We need to continue to win the kids over and make this the best place and truly earn it every day, every week, every month.
Yeah, and let's double tap there because I know a lot of our operators aren't part of emerging brands like Everbowl, and Everbowl's done amazing things like celebrity endorsements, of course, and like very graphic and fun imaging and social media, podcasts, and like all those different things. So you have the luxury kind of a home corporate office that pushes that forward, that helps you in the field, and not everybody's part of a franchise system like that. So when you say, hey, social aspect for the hourly workers, when you say, hey, we're the cool, fun place to work, we're kind of the sexy thing around the block, what are some things that you've done inside of your locations to push that forward and make sure that you maintain strategically?
Yeah. So we just this Sunday, we did a training for the new bowl that's coming out on July 1st. And we made it, our first two core values are make friends and have fun, right? So we intermingle that into everything that we do. While you were saying that, though, one of the things that popped in my mind is we're super intentional about actually getting to know these kids, right? Yeah. It's like, what are you excited about? What are you doing this summer? It's like we have conversations with them, right? Because, it's like same interactions day after day. But then when you come to somebody and you're like, hey, Jordan, what are you doing this summer, right? Like, oh, I'm going to camp at Ball State, and I'm going. Oh, what really? What for? Journalism. Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were interested in journalism, right? Yeah. So it's like we actually, John Maxwell talks about people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Like we're very intentional about that. So culturally, that's really important to us. We keep things simple, right? Like there's always things that need done. There's always fruit that needs cut. There's always cleaning that needs to be done. That's nonstop, right? But we also just have the expectation that these kids aren't going to just do that nonstop, right? So creating checklists and creating processes and managing the things and leading the people, right? And a couple of our other core values are integrity and be remarkable. And we use that a lot. The one thing, and these are Everbowl's core values, right? These aren't like just our organization's core values. And this is the first time I've been part of a franchise where I didn't have to create my own core values. I could actually just use the core values that they put together. So we lead through the core values, right? So if a good example is an opener comes in and the store wasn't clean, that wasn't mopped, there's not fruit prepped. Like that's not being remarkable. That you're not showing integrity, and you're definitely not being a friend, right? Because you just let your buddy down that's coming in to open. But leading through those core values, it just kind of lands differently with these kids, and it helps them understand the importance of doing things and doing them the right way all the time.
Yeah. Then you as the area developer and the franchisee, how do you scale that down to the ground floor, right? Because when I
Yeah.
hear like, hey, not everybody has corporate core values and all these things, and as you know, just being part of such a large machine at Verizon, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier in a smaller group than it
Yeah.
is at, like a Bojangles or a McDonald's that has so many different
Right.
units. Like, what have you seen that's special about Everbowl to be able to push it down and people like yourself get so excited about it? Because that's not inherent in every single franchise,
Right.
right? So what are your kind of thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it starts with the franchise development process. I think that we have to bring in franchisees, and I think we've done a really good job of that, of bringing in franchisees that are going to love on these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are, they're going to continuously change and evolve, right? These 16 to 20-year-olds that we're working with, 5 years from now, what they want and their worlds are going to be different. And we cannot expect them to adapt to what we are doing, right?
Right.
So being adjustable, and I mean, it's loving and leading them well. Like you have to have patience. You have to communicate clearly with them. We had Gary V on to speak to our franchisees.
Mm.
Jeff Fenster and him are friends, and Gary V came on and did a town hall, and that's one of the questions that somebody asked. They were like, "Hey, like how do I communicate with these kids?" And he was like, man, first thing is like, you got to understand they're not going to care as much as you. And that's okay. They
Right.
don't need to care as much as you. But finding what gets them excited. And so, yeah, sorry, going off track a little bit, but it 100%, with myself and the other people that do franchise development across the country, it starts with screening those franchisees and helping them to understand how important it is, because this is who you are getting. This is part of the deal of Everbowl. This is why Everbowls are so profitable, because we can keep our labor costs down
Right.
because we have a bunch of high school kids working here. And if you're going to get frustrated about working with high school kids, this is not the business for you to own.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that dynamic. Like how many people do you have working each location? How many people do you need to fill the schedule? How many of
Yeah.
those are part-time? How many would you kind of classify in the 40 to 50 hour mark?
Yep. So 8 to 12 in the average Everbowl. And then in our busier stores, 15 to 20. 90% are part-time. Sometimes one shift a week, sometimes two shifts a week. Yeah, so we just have a lot of high school kids that, they work Saturdays and Sundays. They work the open shift on Saturday, Sunday. That's it. We've got some homeschool kids that work throughout the week.
Yep.
So a lot of different, I like having, once again, because it goes back to our employees. If they only work 8 hours a week versus 20, they're okay. It's not that big of a deal, right? So I like having more kids, because then on a Saturday, if it's like, oh, I have an opportunity for an event, I have a group of kids to pull from to say, hey, can you come help work this event? And
Right.
we're able to execute more, and we're not limited by the amount of people that we have. And it also helps with the growth of the organization. Like as we had one store in Noblesville, Indiana. We added a second store in Noblesville, Indiana. Because we had a staff that was beefed up, we were able to spread the team out and transition that way. And
Yep.
we've had people that started as hourly employees that became GMs. We've had people that have started as hourly employees that have became GMs that now own stores. And then we also have one right now that she's the GM of our Noblesville store, that her and her family want to own a store, so they're going through the process right now. So that's kind of a dream scenario for us.
Yeah, and for the general managers and director of ops that are listening to this podcast, because that's kind of our biggest viewership. What are some ways that you've been able to attract the younger workforce? I mean, you said 16 to 22 years old. That is unique to Everbowl across the hourly workforce, right? But it's the fastest growing cohort in the hourly workforce is Gen Z and millennials. And I think to your points, you made a lot of really valid points here. Is they consider different things from work than previous generations, and they might want something a little bit different than a paycheck and 40 hours a week. So, what are some ways that you've been able to help your team recruit this younger workforce and get them into the restaurant and get them excited?
Yeah. So, couple of different things that come to mind. We get active on the Facebook groups, right? I'll give you an example. We are opening a store in Fort Mill, South Carolina. It was a Clean Juice that's closing, and we're coming in and taking over the space and turning it into an Everbowl. We were hoping to keep the GM, but the GM took another job, and she's like, "Hey, it's in marketing. I'm really excited about it." So what I'm doing is I actually got on all of the large Fort Mill like chatter pages, right? So we go to where the parents are, to be honest. So a couple of things, like we'll go to where the parents are on social media. Another thing that we do is
is that like Rock Hill moms, Rock Hill dad groups, like pick up soccer, like all those various things? Okay.
Yeah, it's like what's happening. It's chatter, right? Like locally they call it chatter, like Noblesville chatter, right? It's hilarious because I love watching what people get upset about. The Fort Mill, it's like what's happening in Fort Mill, right? And there's like 20,000 people in there, right? So it's like when I post on there like, hey, we're opening soon, email, so that's a route. So we've done well with that. The other route that we like to take is we'll reach out to the local churches and say, hey, we would love to talk to your youth leader because we love hiring youth from the local churches. And then there's a whole plethora of youth groups, right? Young Life. Around here, there's like 5 or 6 of them. We have one of our store owners in Bloomington at the IU campus. Her and her husband have been associated with Young Life for like 15, 20 years. So everybody that comes through Young Life knows like, oh, I could talk to Lori and I could probably get a job at Everbowl. So thinking about like, okay, don't think about it through the lens of going and finding the kids. How do I get to the people that can get to the kids? So it's these youth leaders, sports coaches, church leaders, parents, right? So kind of definitely grassroots. Like when we had Verizon, it was like, oh, we're going to advertise on these different websites. It's like these kids have, you know what I mean? Like they don't even know they want a job sometimes.
Yeah. No, totally get it. I was talking with, I can't remember if it was Bojangles or KFC, and we're talking about different ways to recruit people. And they said to me, the most effective recruiting tool we've ever had costs 25 cents. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And he was like, it's a piece of paper that we printed out and I put it inside the rec center gymnasium that just says, need spending money, apply here.
Right.
And, it's funny because we spend, tens of thousands of dollars as operators on some of the largest job boards trying to get volume. And for all the reasons I'm sure you're intimate with, is you get a lot of people applying with low intent, not a right match, but you pay for every single one that comes through. So I like the purposeful perspective of going directly to kind of the source yourself. And although I'm sure it takes a lot of cycles to get it done, it creates the flywheel effect, right? Where if you get the right people within the store, they bring their friends. And good people typically surround themselves with good people. Bad people typically surround themselves with bad people. So if you get a good, rich vein within a community and you become, as you put it, like the employer of choice, have the right kids in place, they bring their friends, their cousins, their siblings, and then all of a sudden you have an amazing community of people who come work for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how'd you learn that? Like, did you get burned by a lot of different job boards? Like, I'm sure you have scars just as we all do. Yeah. What really got you to that point?
So I can pinpoint it. We had 5 or 6 Verizon stores, and we were acquiring a company locally that had 5 or 6 stores. We were literally doubling in size over the course of a day, and I went to a buddy of mine and was, telling him like, hey, like I need to bring in 15, 20 people into my team. And he said exactly what you said, right? About, like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right? It's like the people that you're around Who
Yep.
you are is who you're going to be around. And so he said, reach out to people that like fit the avatar on who you would want to hire and ask them if they know anybody that's looking for a job, right? So I would come to you and be like, hey, AJ, I'm looking for this. I know you're good, but do you have anybody in your friend circle that's looking? And the other thing on the Verizon side, our big thing was we want empty cups that we could fill in and teach, right? Once again, two total different worlds, literally two extremes. Stressful on the Verizon side, unstressful on the Everbowl side when you're talking about the employees. But on the Verizon side, we had got burnt so many times by the mindset of like, oh, I need somebody. Let's find somebody that has experience at Sprint, right? And it was just like, oh, I don't need your sales process. I do it my way. And oh, this is how we did it this way. It's like, I ain't got time for that, right? I would rather spend the time and money on training and teaching somebody and developing them the right way. So I would definitely think it's where we're at today is through our experiences of being burned by honestly just our poor decisions and going to the wrong wells versus like just being patient and hiring for character and integrity first.
Yep.
And then teaching the skills that they needed to learn.
Yeah, I love that. And love that quote too about your friend group. I always love the one by Jim Rohn. It's you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
And you think about it, you're like, man, that is so true, right?
It's scary.
And, yeah, it's scary because oftentimes you have to level up, and also I don't want to say cut people because it seems insensitive, but live the life that you want, surround yourself with people that are doing that now. So when you think about that, just in franchise development, growing your teams, growing your business, and growing your life, is there a group of people that you surround yourself with to help you flourish, help you grow? I mean, we talk a lot about leadership within the individual stores and for the hourly worker, but what's that like for Alex?
Yeah, so for me, what I think of when you say that is it's so obviously you have your local friends, right? What's important to me when I have my local circle of friends is a lot of them, we have the same faith system. We met at church, but then a lot of them are entrepreneurs, business people, and they're driving towards growth. They have a growth mindset, right? If I do not necessarily keep people away, they kind of keep themselves away because I'm going to annoy them with the idea of what are we doing to grow our business? What are we doing to grow, make a bigger impact, right? And if you ain't down with that, then you're probably not going to want to be in my group.
Hang out.
And then the other thing is when I think about franchising, right? So what really led to explosive growth for me and my partner was we were in this silo at Verizon where everything that we did was just Verizon. We only interacted with Verizon people, and all of our money that we made was going back into growing the Verizon stores. And then I joined a mastermind group, a franchise mastermind group. And I remember meeting this couple that owned 2 different franchises and they own long-term rentals, and they were looking at a third franchise. And I'm like, what, you could do that? And it just blew so I love mastermind groups. And if anybody's in franchising, like check out Eric Van Horn's mastermind group. I mean, it's very inexpensive and it's worth it just for the relationships because you get connected to people that are walking through the same thing that you're walking through, right? And then what I'm doing now is I'm really hyper focused on local community. We do a monthly event where we call it Bowls in Business, where we bring in business owners and entrepreneurs and we connect with each other and we really support each other. How can we help solve each other's problems? So I'm really trying to get more focused on locally finding those people that are and growing those networks of people. And really, because I love connecting people. I love connecting people to opportunities to buy businesses, opportunities for jobs.
Yeah. My dad used to tell me if you run fast enough, the only people that will pace are the people you want around you.
Yeah.
Right. And so like if you're running at your pace, kind of just moving the way that you naturally do, then of course, inherently, the people that are around you are of the same mind, right?
Absolutely.
And it's very quick and naturally, as you get older, at least what I'm learning is like people that you like or people that you want to be around oftentimes move at that same pace or have those same tendencies, right?
Absolutely.
Where, like a friend of mine, like will text me and we'll be like, oh, well, what do you want to do? And if he said like, oh, like let's go out after dinner on Saturday night, I'd be like, well, we're just not going to hang out that much because that's hard for me to do, just like with my life and my work and all these things. But then he'll text me, he'll say, hey, do you want to go run at 5 a.m.? And I'm like, yep, this is a type of person that I run with, right?
Yep.
And I spend time with just because of those natural patterns, and you attract what you are, right?
Yep.
And so super interesting, all those different things. But all right, last question for you, because we did want to keep this around the 25-minute mark. And I ask every single guest this, and just note that sometimes it's really funny answers. Sometimes it's wildly and insanely insightful and inspiring. So no pressure, but what was your first hourly job? And were you terminated from that job, or did you leave on your own?
Hourly job. My first job was a paper boy, and me and my brother were paper boys. And if it was up to my dad,
where is this again? Paint a picture for us.
This is Van Loo, Ohio, population 300. Literally strapping on the papers, and we're riding our bikes and we're chucking the papers, right? And we liked that, especially during the summertime. But when it got cold out, it sucked. And we literally had to go around and collect the payments as well, right? Because I mean, this is the 80s, right?
So people are dropping quarters as you're walking by?
I mean, no, like not even while I was walking by, right? It was like I would have to come, they would write a check once a month, right, for their papers.
Yeah.
So that was like how we, doing that and mowing yards. But my first hourly job was after I graduated high school, because I played sports in high school, so we had no time for a job. Actually, sorry, I got lots of good hourly job stories. The first hourly job was actually baling hay, right? Baling hay and baling straw. Now, there's a difference between baling hay and baling straw, and it's about 30 pounds of bale when you're talking about hay versus straw. And we like to bale hay for this family in Van Loo, because even if you were 16 years old, after you got done with the day, the farmer really believed that you should have a cold beer. And, we would drink a couple of beers. They would write us a check. They'd give us a couple of beers, and they would bring us like a bag full of McDonald's. And like where we were from, like getting McDonald's was like the greatest treat. So baled hay during high school. Loved that. Or no, actually, I didn't love that, but it was fun hanging out with my friends and being outside and stuff. And then after I graduated, I got a job at a factory. Literally, the labels of shampoo bottles would go by, and I would have to look at them and just verify that they were lined up, right?
How often were they not? Like, what was the success rate of that machine?
Yeah, like I was so bad at the job that I probably just let 100% of the stuff go through. So who knows? But at the end of the summer, the guy was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that you're not a good employee at all, and we would not bring you." Like he was like completely honest with me, which it didn't really like hit home at the time, or I didn't learn anything from it. I'll tell you that, right? And I typically do a really good job of learning from everything. The thing that I learned was like, I'm gonna go build stuff because I don't want to do this, right? Like that's what I learned. But I just was like, I was not paying attention to detail. I didn't have any type of work ethic, and I was not passionate about the job. So
you
wasn't technically fired.
You weren't technically fired, but you weren't rehired.
Oh yeah. They were like, "Nah, you're not coming back. There's no way."
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, have you ever considered reaching back out to that person?
I don't know who he is.
Okay.
I'd have to ask my mom. My mom.
I always end up asking that because like I'll have like the CEO or CHRO of massive organizations on here, and they'll tell the story about, when I actually worked inside one of the restaurants as a teenager, the general manager was so kind to me, and I always ask, hey, had you ever considered like reaching out to that person now as the CEO of the whole thing or the CHRO? And no one has ever said, yes, I reached back out, or I made it a point to say thank you or anything like that. So I think it's just, so much time has passed by, but always interesting to hear. It's there.
Well, and I have another one that he made a massive impact, and he's passed away. But I worked at a Ford dealership, and my job during the summer was literally like 6 hours a day. I would go out and wash the cars.
Right.
And the owner of the dealership came out there, and he was like just telling me like how important this job is. You know, people are driving by and they see how, you know what I mean? So it's like him taking the time, that made a massive impact in me, because it was like he got down to my level, he interacted with me, and he helped me to understand the why behind why I was doing this and how it made such a difference in his organization.
Yeah, love it. All right. Well, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach you? And what sort of things stick out when somebody unsolicited messages you? Is it about franchising? Is it about people? Like, what are you passionate about? And what's the best way to get in touch about that?
So best way to get in touch with me, socials, my name's Alex Yeater, Yeater. There's only one other Alex Yeater in the country, and he's like an 18-year-old kid in Louisiana. And we interact with each other. So if you hit him up, he'll just send you my way. So just reach out to me on any social media platform. What I'm passionate about is number one, if you're a business owner that is a Christian business owner that you want to get the Jesus more involved in your business, I love talking to business owners about that, how to bring prayer into your business, that kind of stuff. Number two, people that are looking to buy and sell businesses. And understanding that process. With Verizon, we sold over the course of all the years, we sold over $10 million worth of stores. We were parts of buys and sells of probably 70 to 80 stores, sometimes 6 at a time, sometimes 1 at a time. So we've been a part of a lot of those transactions, and we're a part of a lot of those transactions even now. So the buys and the sells, anybody really that's like has questions about franchising. I love franchising. I think franchising is the pathway to the American dream. You know, if you can find the right franchise for you and for your area, if you can validate it and prove that it's a financially stable model, and then the SBA will give you money, like 10% down, and like the barrier of entry is really easy with franchising and with the SBA. I push so many people towards franchising. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, love it. Well, again, Alex, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and looking forward to continuing the conversation here.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ.
Great. Thanks.